now for these ancient words. We know, this is from Romans, the 8th chapter by the Apostle Paul. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know how to pray as we ought, but that very Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words. And God, who searches the heart, knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to God's purpose. What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? For I am convinced that neither life, nor death, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. Amen. And in a little more playful way from Hafiz, pulling out the chair beneath your mind and watching you fall upon God. What else is there for Hafiz to do that is any more fun than that in the world? So at our staff meeting, this is Ancient Wisdom and Holy Word.
Thanks be to all that provides and holy.
All creation is wisdom and holy word.
All creation sings of wisdom and power.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Well, at our staff meeting check-in earlier this week, we noted our team was experiencing a fair amount of either physical and or emotional discomfort. And that was before Daniel ended up in the ER with gallbladder pain. And Jay reminded us that these are the dog days of summer. Curious, I decided to look up where that term comes from. It refers to the star Sirius, which is the brightest star, the brightest true star in the night sky. Now, Sirius is known as the dog star. It's part of the constellation Canis Major, or Big Dog. And in the summer, Sirius rises and sets with the sun. On July 23rd, it is in conjunction with the sun, and because the star is so bright, the ancient Romans believed that it actually gave off heat and added to the sun's warmth, accounting for this long stretch of sultry weather. Thus, the weeks before and after this occurrence are known as the dog days. However, Yonah had a different interpretation from growing up in Cherokee. The dog days there are known as the time of year when snakes are expected to shed their skins. And you got to watch out. A snake sheds after a significant growth period has occurred. The outer scales covering a snake's body don't grow with a snake. So about 5 to 14 days before the actual shedding, the snake's body begins to undergo changes. The most noticeable are that the snake becomes inactive. The eyes begin to cloud, and the skin appears dull. The behavior of the snake changes too. It becomes irritable and spends most of its time hiding or soaking. The snake's vision is blurred in that pre-shed period, and not being able to discern definite shapes causes the snake to strike out when cornered or harassed. So feeling vulnerable and easily irritated seemed a pretty good match for where several of us confessed to be earlier this week. Being able to reframe it as a time of skin shedding and growth helped us give ourselves and each other a little bit of grace. I feel like the whole world is in a skin shedding phase. We seem to have outgrown the skin we've been wearing, but we haven't quite shed it yet. So our vision is dulled and blurred and unable to see clearly our way forward. We strike out at each other. We feel cornered, harassed, vulnerable. If we can keep in mind this reframe, maybe it will be easier to offer ourselves and each other the grace we all need. We're shedding because we're growing. We're vulnerable because we're changing. It's dulled now because we're preparing to see things more clearly. Now, this is not a new experience for humanity, as was pointed out earlier, or for the globe. In his letter to the church in Rome, Paul wrote, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now, and not only the creation, but we ourselves groan inwardly as we wait for redemption." Paul. You know, love him or hate him, I can almost forgive all of his sins for having written the 8th chapter of Romans. He sees that our struggles are not simply personal, but that the whole creation is undergoing change and rebirth, that every part of our world, not just the human part, groans with the labor of birthing this new world. Creation has certainly been screaming at us this year. Is it possible that these cries are labor pain rather than the cries of death? We can hope so. And Paul says, hope is what saves us. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Waiting with patience does not mean waiting in a stupor. Action can be patient. We can begin to act as if what we hope for is possible. So this week was the 32nd anniversary of Jubilee. August 11th, 1989, Howard and a motley crew came and got this place going. And we've seen a lot of changes in those 32 years. In the 12 months that I've been your minister of transition, I've cycled in and out of hope for a vibrant future for Jubilee, if I'm fully honest with you. Sometimes with patience, sometimes not so much. But when I imagine our current situation as a snake shedding its skin, I'm able to reframe the blurred vision and anxiety as a period of vulnerability when we no longer fit into our old skin, but we haven't completely shed it yet. When I see this community's uncertainty as part of a larger sea change, the groaning of the whole creation, then I can sense being part of a greater purpose. But here we are, dancing with change, and change keeps stepping on our toes. What are we to do? If we're in that pre-shedding moment of blurred vision and we can't even see quite clearly what we hope for, how do we move forward? Paul reminds us, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know how to pray as we ought, but that very Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words. Oh, right. We aren't alone. There is a spirit, one spirit, that is in us and in our community, between us, among us, in our nation, in our world, in the whole creation. A spirit that can pray in us and through us, even when we don't know how to hope or pray. A spirit that intercedes with sighs too deep for words. And furthermore, Paul says, we know that all things work together for good for those who love God. All things work together for good. Say that with me. All things work together for good. And then Paul really ramps it up. What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. If God is for us, who could be against us? And here's the thing we know. God is for us. God is for us. God is for us. Augustine prayed, "Oh God, you made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." What if everything that feels uncertain now in your own heart, in our community, in the world beyond, is part of a divine restlessness? What if we are being stirred and shaken until we seek rest in the only place we'll truly find it? If God is for us, who can be against us? This is why Hafiz can tease us, pulling out the chair beneath your mind and watching you fall upon God. What else is Hafiz to do that's any fun? The chair can be pulled out from under us because God is for us. We do fall there. Because Spirit will intercede beyond our ability to articulate our needs. Because nothing can separate us from the love of God. Say this after me. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers nor height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. Can I get an amen? Amen. For I am convinced. There's a scene in the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis when one of the children has been turned into a dragon. And he's in a lot of pain and he's miserable. And he doesn't want to be a dragon. And in the middle of the night, the lion, Aslan, comes to him. And the boy is afraid, even though he's not a boy now, he's a dragon, and he might have been able to kill the lion. But Eustace, the boy turned dragon, is not afraid of being eaten. He just senses that something fearful is about to happen. Aslan the lion takes Eustace, the dragon boy, to a large well and tells him to undress and get in the water. Well, the dragon isn't wearing any clothes, so he's confused for a minute, but then he realizes that maybe like a snake, he can shed his skin. And so he starts to scratch, and it starts to flake off, and then finally it peels like a banana, and he's able to step out of it. And so he starts to step into the water, and he looks down, and he sees his feet are still scaly and gnarly, and he looks at himself, and he realizes he's still a dragon. So he does it again. He scratches and shakes, and he pulls it off, and then he steps out again. And he's got to keep doing it. And so he scratches some more, and another layer comes off. A third time, he steps out, and he's still a dragon. And so Aslan says, let me do it. Eustace is a little scared, but he lies down, and he lets the lion come at him with his enormous claws. And the first cut is so deep and so painful that he thinks maybe his heart is being ripped out. And as the lion starts tearing off the skin, the pain was matched by the pleasure of Eustace feeling himself being freed. Aslan pulled off a thicker, more gnarly layer than the boy had been able to get off himself. And then Aslan threw Eustace into the water, where he, a boy again, swam and splashed with joy. Maybe our world and this community, and some of us are like snakes shedding our skin, a little dull and cranky because we can't quite get out of them yet. Or maybe we're more like Eustace. And while we can scratch and shed layers of ourselves, we need something sharp to cut through to our true selves. We need God to slash through the layers that we've been dressed in that no longer serve us. We need a spiritual intervention to bring us back to where God created us to be. Maybe we need to lie down and let that divine claw just sink into our being and feel that mix of fear and pain and pleasure at being freed. If God is for us, who can be against us? And God is for us. So we can shed these skins as many times as we need to, or we can lie back and let God cut through them and bring us back to ourselves. Whichever we do, we can do it in trust, because we are convinced that nothing in all creation can separate us from God's love. And that's why so often we sing here, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all shall be well.